Good morning. How are you? The quote I shared with you, I just jumped right into it. Good morning. How are you? I hope you're doing well. The quote I shared with you this morning actually was sent to me through an email from my mentor. I think I've said before that I based this email, a daily dose of insight, on his daily email, which is a daily um, dose of caffeine for the soul, right? And it's a great quote, and I decided to use it as a jumping off point for today's video because I'm seeing some evidence of what happens when we have an understanding for something. What happens to fear when we have an understanding for something? And we all have things that we're afraid of, right? Things in our minds that, whether it's I'm afraid to go talk to that person because they may not like me, or I'm afraid to ask someone for help because that may make me look weak. I am afraid to express myself in front of people. They may not understand. We have fears, but usually the reason we have the fears, first of all, we feel fear because we're having fearful thoughts. But the reason we're having fearful thoughts is because we don't understand something, right? Fundamentally, we don't have an understanding. And if you look back in history itself, and if you look back even probably in your own personal history, there were times that you didn't understand how something worked, so you were afraid of it. Like afraid of riding a bike the first time because you didn't really know how it worked until you got on the bike and learned how to balance and got a feel for it. And then you realized how it worked and you were no longer afraid of it. Driving a car, maybe if you, until you got behind the wheel and actually started to do it and get a feel for it and understand how it worked, you might have been afraid to actually get behind the wheel. Maybe not, but, speaking for me. If you look back in history, there's just a plethora of examples, way back when shipping was the only way to get from point A to point B, and everybody thought that the world was flat and you would fall off the edge of the world, they had these huge anchors on ships to stop them from going over the edge because they didn't understand how the curvature of the earth worked. I remember I was just having a conversation with someone recently about the current COVID pandemic, and I was kind of equating it to back in the 80s when AIDS first came on the scene and how afraid everyone was because we didn't understand how it was transmitted. We didn't understand how it worked. And this person is a younger person, and they were surprised when I was talking about the AIDS epidemic and how fearful everyone was. They had no idea that was a problem because in their lifetime, the HIV and AIDS epidemic, while it's still with us, it's controllable. We've discovered and we've understood how the virus is transmitted, and we can control it, and we can work with it. There's a lot of medications to work with it. So for them, it was like, really? That was a problem? Oh yeah, it was a big problem because we didn't understand. And the same happens in our mental health. People in general don't necessarily understand. And I didn't understand, although I had an inkling somewhere along the line. And I think that's it. We have an inkling, like there's something that we know, but we just don't know we know, right? I'm going to backpedal a little bit and talk about Aaron for a second. When Aaron was really having problems with suicidal ideation, he came to me and he told me what was happening, and we took him to the emergency room and got him into an inpatient program. And when he came out, he was on medication. And his thought about that medication was that it was going to be like an antibiotic. It was going to take away the problems he was having. But that's not the way the medication works. That's not how antidepressants and things work. They don't cure, they're not curative. And so because he didn't understand that, he had a lot of fear about what that would mean for his future. This isn't working. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. And I think there was just a lot of rabbit hole that happened because of that misunderstanding, just not understanding, and the fear that went with it. And I think that in our own mental health, we have misunderstandings about things like depression and anxiety, and we fear what we don't understand. I was having a conversation earlier this week with someone about feeling a little depressed, and how easy it is once you start getting that thought into your head that I have an issue with depression, how easily you can go down the rabbit hole, and the fear can really take over. Is this going to be for the rest of my life? Am I going to need medication? Am I going to get through it? And we had a discussion about the nature of depression and how it works, and how depression is really a fail-safe mechanism. It's proof of our innate health, right? If you've ever used a hair dryer, and I think I may have used this in emails before, but if you use a hair dryer and you overuse it and it gets hot, it will shut itself down rather than overheat and catch fire, okay? That's a fail-safe mechanism within the system of the hair dryer. When we are experiencing a lot of anxiety and a lot of noise in head and a lot of very fast thinking, that's anxiety, and we feel that in our bodies. Obviously, if we're thinking it, we're feeling it, right? And the body can only run on that adrenaline for so long, and it has a fail-safe mechanism, and it shuts down the anxiety, and depression is kind of the other side of that coin. So it's kind of like, if you see that, it's not so scary to understand the mechanism. When you realize that depression is actually a fail-safe mechanism within your system, because we are so beautifully designed, it's less scary. And you can ruminate on it less, what it means and what's going to happen, and taking yourself down the rabbit hole and getting stuck. You can recognize that, oh, okay, this feeling here is just the system cooling down. And when the system's done cooling down, I'm going to be out of it. That feels so much less scary to me. And seeing that for myself has helped me not go down the rabbit hole of, what does this mean? What's going to happen? Will I get out of this? Am I going to be here forever? I don't have to have that fear, because I understand how the system works. And I think that it's so helpful to understand all of our little apps. We're kind of like smartphones. We have apps that many of us don't even ever look at, but the apps are foundational to who we are. And they're the same for everybody. And I've talked about them in these emails over and over, mind, thought, and consciousness. We are alive. We have an aliveness within us. There is an intelligence behind life that runs us when we just let it flow. Consciousness, we have the capacity to feel and experience. And thought, well, we know we're thinking all the time. We are thinking machines, thinking, meaning, making machines. And understanding that that's how it works just takes the edge off. And when I say understanding, I'm not talking about an intellectual thinking mind understanding. Yes, I understand that. Okay, I get it. Yes, it's my thoughts. Okay, good. Now what's next? No. I'm talking about insight, where you really see it. That's the, oh, look at what's happening here. When you get reflective, when you sit with it and really see it. I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night who just got back from a sales meeting, and he was explaining to people what I've said before, that, thoughts create our feelings. Thoughts are the other side of the coin of our feelings. And he got a lot of response from the people in the room. And I told him, I said, if you were just saying that rotely because you heard me say it, chances are people wouldn't connect to that, because you understand it, but you're not living from it. You're not grounded in it. There's a difference. And I said, so obviously you've seen this in your life. And he said, oh yeah, I've definitely seen it. I've seen it myself. I've seen it in my kids. And seeing it, having the insights, That's the key. That's the key to truly understanding, right? It's not an intellectual understanding, it's an in your bones understanding. And that really is the antidote to fear. And I think that, this quote by Marie Curie from how many years ago, a couple hundred years ago at least, shows that there is an understanding and there are humans that get this at a deep level, like they get a joke, like they just get it. And I think the more we see it and the more we stay in this conversation, the more we get it, the less we have to fear. Just understanding how the system works, super important. So that's what I just wanted to kind of go over today. That was what was on my mind. I would love to hear from you if there's anything you'd like to hear me talk about. I'm thinking about doing a course, like a 1 or 2 day course, probably on a Thursday evening, like 2 Thursdays in a row, on deep listening. Deep listening is the first step to understanding things and having, at a deeper level, and having these insights is listening. Listening, not where you're listening to your own thoughts, but where you're really listening to yourself and to the person talking to you. Understanding starts to come through right there. So anyway, thinking about doing that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And if I put it together, or when I put it together, I'm going to say when. When I put it together, I'll put in an email about it. And if you want to join me on Zoom, just to see what we see and explore what we explore, that would be great. All right. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.